The conflict between Israel and Palestine is one of the main sources of tension in the world. The two-state plan, proposed by the United Nations in 1947, and Israel's declaration of independence on May 14, 1948, started a dispute that has continued to this day. For almost 8 decades, both sides have fought to obtain legitimacy and recognition from the international community, although Israel, with the enormous support of the United States, has always enjoyed a great advantage in this struggle. However, we have all asked ourselves, what is the reason and origin of all this hostility? Why so much indifference between both peoples and races? Stay until the end of this video, and we will unravel the beginnings and reasons why there is today, in our days, this great number of confrontations and conflicts which seem to have no end. Welcome everyone to this, your Bible of Life channel. In today's video, we will analyze the biblical and theological origin of the current Arab-Israeli conflict. But first, I invite you to subscribe to this channel, share, comment on your opinions, and leave your like. In this way, you support us and motivate us to continue creating quality content and spiritual growth for all our followers. Don't forget to activate the notification bell so that you stay up to date with all our videos and new content. Thank you very much. According to the biblical texts, the Arab-Israeli conflict has its most remote historical antecedent in the invasion of the lands of Canaan, historic Palestine, by the Hebrews, a people of Semitic origin, led from Ur, Chaldea, in 1850 BC by their patriarch Abraham, a nomadic shepherd, to whom Yahweh, God of the Hebrews, had promised those lands, ignoring that other Semitic peoples had already emigrated previously. The Hebrews settled in the vicinity of the current city of Hebron, 35 kilometers from what is today Jerusalem. Abraham married Sarah, but after 10 years of being childless and recognizing her sterility, Sarah decided to give him her Egyptian slave, Hagar, as a wife so that she could bear him offspring. From that union was born Ishmael, who is considered the father of all Arabs. However, a few years later, God listened to Sarah's wishes, and despite her advanced age, Sarah conceived Isaac, who was then born to Abraham. Sarah, afraid that Ishmael would claim his birthright, forced Abraham to send Hagar away, who wandered with her son through the desert of Beersheba and was visited by an angel of God who promised her that he would make her son a great nation, and that Ishmael would be a fierce man. His hand will be against everyone, and everyone's hand against him. Thus, tradition places Ishmael and his son Adad as the fathers of the Arabs, which is why they are identified as Adadites or Arabized Arabs. The prophet of Islam, Muhammad, is believed to have been a descendant of the Adamite Arab tribe of Quraysh. Other sources consider Arabs to be direct descendants of Noah through his son Shem. They are known as pure Arabs. Jews are descendants of Isaac, the son of Abraham and Sarah, and it is he who is credited with fulfilling the promise. The religion of Islam, to which most Arabs belong, has made this rivalry even deeper. The Quran contains some contradictory instructions for Muslims regarding Jews. At one point, it instructs Muslims to treat Jews as brothers, and at another, it orders Muslims to attack Jews who refuse to convert to Islam. The Quran also introduces a conflict as to who is the true son of Abraham's promise. The Hebrew scriptures say it was Isaac. The Quran says it was Ishmael. The Quran teaches that it was Ishmael whom Abraham almost sacrificed to the Lord, not Isaac, in contradiction to Genesis chapter 22. This debate over who was the son of promise contributes to the current hostility. However, the older root of bitterness between Isaac and Ishmael does not explain all of the current hostility between Jews and Arabs. In fact, for thousands of years in the history of the Middle East, Jews and Arabs lived in relative peace and indifference toward each other. The primary cause of hostility has a more recent origin. Let us go back in time. The name Palestine was given by the Roman Empire when it conquered that place in the early years of our era. At that time, the majority of the population was Jewish, but later converted to Christianity. 6 centuries later, Islam also arose in the area, to which some inhabitants also converted. This is important to understand, that it is not that the Palestinians came to take their land from the Jews. Far from it. It is a territory in which there were populations. Yes, there were migrations. There were people who came from outside. But essentially, it has been the same local people who have kept or changed their religion. The conflict between Israel and Palestine is one of the main sources of tension in the world. The two-state plan, proposed by the United Nations in 1947, and Israel's declaration of independence on May 14, 1948, started a dispute that has continued to this day. For almost 8 decades, both sides have fought to obtain legitimacy and recognition from the international community, although Israel, with the enormous support of the United States, has always enjoyed a great advantage in this struggle. However, we have all asked ourselves, what is the reason and origin of all this hostility? Why so much indifference between both peoples and races? This territory was part of the Ottoman Empire from the 12th century until the end of the First World War in 1917. In 1922, the League of Nations established the Mandate System. 1. Palestine was taken from the Ottoman Empire by the United Kingdom and passed to its colonial control. The duties of the British command in Palestine included ensuring the establishment of the Jewish national home, the future Israel. Between 1936 and 1939, the United Kingdom crushed the Arab revolt in Palestine. Subsequently, in November 1947, United Nations UN Resolution 181 divided Palestine into 2 states, one Arab and one Jewish. Jerusalem would remain under international control. The West Bank, including East Jerusalem, was with Jordan and the Gaza Strip with Egypt. The State of Israel was created on May 14, 1948. The United States was the first state to recognize it. The Palestinians did so de facto on the same day that Israel declared its independence. 3 days later, the Soviet Union was the first country to officially recognize the Jewish country. At that time, Moscow hoped that Israel would become a socialist state and an ally in the Middle East. Thus, this creation of the state caused an 8-month war with Arab countries, the Nakba that we mentioned earlier. More than 780,000 Palestinians were displaced to the Gaza Strip, the West Bank and other Arab countries, without the possibility of returning to their former home. Under the auspices of the Arab League, the Palestine Liberation Organization, PLO, was created in 1964. In the Six-Day War of June 1967, Israel defeated Egypt, Jordan and Syria and occupied East Jerusalem, the West Bank, the Gaza Strip and the Golan Heights. Shortly afterwards, Jewish settlements began in the occupied territories, which continue today in the West Bank, East Jerusalem and the Golan Heights. The First Intifada, a Palestinian uprising against Israeli rule, lasted from 1987 to 1993. Jordan and Egypt then relinquished any control over the Palestinian territories, which they had lost. In 1993, Israel and the PLO signed a Declaration of Principles for Palestinian Autonomy after 6 months of secret negotiations in Oslo, launching a peace process. Yasser Arafat, leader of the PLO, returned to the Palestinian territories in July 1994 after 27 years of exile to create the Palestinian Authority. An autonomous government was then established for the first time in the Gaza Strip and the West Bank town of Jericho. In 2007, the Islamist movement Hamas took control of Gaza after fierce fighting with its rivals from the Fatah faction, led by Abbas. Since then, the government of the two territories that currently constitute Palestine has been divided. Since then, Israel has also maintained a blockade of the Gaza Strip and has severely restricted exits from this territory. Historically, the conflict between Israel and Palestine has caused tens of thousands of deaths and millions of displaced people. With the recent attacks, the death toll in Gaza has risen to more than 3,400 in recent days. Israel has diplomatic relations with 166 countries, including the United States, France, Germany, Italy, and the United Kingdom. The clashes sparked by the radical group Hamas, which seeks the establishment of an Islamic state in the historic Palestinian region, in October 2023, are part of a continuous succession of 75 years of offensives and counteroffensives between Palestinians and Israelis. 75 years of conflict, the consequences of which have been a mass exodus of the population living in this region, deaths, injuries, and a serious humanitarian crisis. A conflict that concerns the entire international community because it affects some of us more than others, indirectly or directly. But what is the impact of this historic conflict? This historic conflict, which was aggravated by the recent attacks in the region of the already battered Gaza Strip, not only fosters hatred between the Jewish and Arab populations of the world, but also divides the media, governments, and the world population into two camps: pro-Palestinian versus pro-Israeli, anti-terrorism versus pro-terrorism. What must be condemned in this conflict is the use of violence against the civilian population, regardless of their ethnic origin or religious beliefs, by any organization, state or parastatal. If there is something to defend, it is the right of every human being to develop and live fully in peace, to receive an education, and to have a decent job. The only one who loses in this, as in many other wars, is humanity, by demonstrating that the interests of individuals can prevail over social welfare and human rights. If you like this content, I invite you to subscribe to this channel. Don't forget to activate the notification bell.